I was born in Arkansas City, Arkansas, um, January the 19th, 1918.
Please describe your mother and father, beginning with your father. What were their educational backgrounds and jobs, etc.?
My father was killed in a sawmill accident when I was 6 years old. So I don't know a great deal about my father, but I know a lot about my mother. And my mother never went beyond the third grade because she worked on a farm. People picked cotton and rather than go to school. Although there was never a handicap about that. I never had the feeling that she wasn't the smartest woman in the world.
And did you have any siblings?
I had a half sister, but she was 14 years older than I was. So down there in those days, if you finished high school, you could teach school. And so she had gone to another city, finished high school, and was teaching school. So she was away most of the time. So I really was just a
Like an only child?
only child. Mm-hmm.
And you really didn't know your sister very well because she was so much older and
She was so much
away.
older, yeah.
I see.
Her name was Beulah Lewis.
Beulah Lewis.
But I didn't know her that well. Mm-hmm.
I see. Will you describe the community that you grew up in Arkansas City? What did it look like physically?
Physically, it was just a small town, population of about 600 odd people, then and now. And it was a riverboat town. Everything was around a sawmill. And my stepfather, when my mother married when I was 9 years old again, worked at the sawmill and worked on the levee.
On the
Those
levee?
are the only jobs that people had.
This is the Mississippi River?
Mississippi River, oh yes, the Mississippi River. We were right on the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River was within walking distance of our little house.
Did you ever experience any floodings?
Oh yes,
When you were
the
growing up there?
1927 flood. I remember very well. I was only 9 years old, but I remember it well. We were coming from church one Sunday afternoon, and the word came that the levee had broken some 30 miles away, and everybody should run for the levee. And so we ran for the levee. No clothes, no money, no nothing. You couldn't even take your pets. So we spent 6 weeks on the levee before the water went down.
Wow.
But the Red Cross, I've always had a lot of respect for the Red Cross. They came in seaplanes and they brought blankets and tents and water and food, and it wasn't so bad.
But did you lose your home?
Oh yes, all the homes were. I kind of hope we would have lost our home.
Will you describe your home?
My home was a 3-room, 10-house place.
The whole structure was
Whole
10?
structure was, well, no, the top was
The
10.
roof was 10.
The roof was 10. The rest was wood. And so what happened is the houses all floated away because of the water. It was 20 feet deep. And the Red Cross said that those people, if you could find your house, they would help you refurbish it. But they couldn't find your house, they'd give you a new house. And I said a prayer every night that they couldn't find my house. But they found it.
They found it.
Snakes and all the other things that crawl around were there. But they cleaned it up and they moved it. That's the first time I knew you could move houses. They moved it from wherever it was, so many blocks away, to our original location.
Was it what you would describe as a shotgun house?
It was a shotgun
Just
house.
walking straight through?
Yeah, it was a shotgun house.
see.
It was a shotgun house.
I see.
And it had an outhouse.
And it had an outhouse?
There was no inside plumbing.
Uh-huh. Was this common in Arkansas City?
Very common, very common.
No toilets.
All the white people had toilets, but
the black people had
there was only
outhouse.
one black person who had a toilet, and he was a man who was a builder who built most of the white people's homes, and he had a toilet. As a matter of fact, he had a daughter named Willoughby, and we go over to her house to play with her on Sundays, and flush the toilet and wonder where the water went. We didn't know where the water went.
So was he considered to be wealthy?
Oh yes,
Yes.
by those standards.
Yes,
he was
exactly,
wealthy.
because he had a toilet.
Yeah, he had a toilet.
Yes.
And he had a car.
Oh my. In other words, you were doing a lot of walking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I had to walk everywhere. No telephones either.
No telephones.
No, the only telephone, if you got a message, people would get messages, someone died from far away, they call a grocery store, and the grocery store would send an errand person over to your house and tell you what happened.
What particular defining childhood memories do you have about Arkansas City? Anything that defined your life as it turned out to be?
I had a good life. I didn't know there was a better life.
Yes.
So I had a good life, and there was a lot of prejudice and discrimination, but my mother kept me away from that. She said, son, don't do this and don't do that. And so I never went anywhere to challenge the system. And she worked for a white doctor, and she let me tag along to do errands just so she could keep up with me and know where I was. And we were known as Dr. McCampbell's niggas,
Oh.
and nobody bothered us. You know, I understand it's something like in the prison system. If you hang on to somebody, none of the other people will bother you. So nobody bothers us.
Because he was considered the protector?
He was considered the protector.
Oh.
He was a big, tall guy. And I remember that there was a pharmacy downstairs from where his office was. And he sent me downstairs to pick up a prescription. And they didn't know what I was coming in there for. And they said, well, we don't serve any niggas in here. And so I ran upstairs crying and told my mother, who told the doctor, and he went downstairs and beat up the guy and said, don't ever call my niggas no nigga.
Whoa. My goodness.
So that was the way it was.
Do you think that was common?
It was very common. It
I
was
see.
very common.
So if
You had to be under the protective custody of someone if
see.
you wanted to survive. You know, if you asked, in those days, if you asked anyone in my little town if they were going to church or if they were going to some other meeting, they'd say, if I live and nothing happens, because there was no certainty that they would live, and there was no certainty that nothing would happen. So to this day, I think about that. If I live and nothing happens, I'll be there.